Hello, good morning, everybody. So we're just waiting for everybody to come in. My name is Lou Peck. I am the CEO of the International Bunch. I have been in the research ecosystem for, oh my goodness, nearly like quarter of a century. And I've been doing marketing for about 26 years. We have a wonderful session planned for you today, quite an interactive session. Amy is with me as well. Amy, please say
Hello.
hello.
Hello, hello. I am a marketing executive at the International Bunch.
Right, welcome to the session today. Now, before we begin, I want to say a huge thank you to the supporting sponsors that we have listed here, Scholastica, oh dear, I can't speak today, Arthur, Kaleo and Science Open. But I would also like to say a huge thank you to JAMS because of what that they contribute and because they're effectively the sponsorship that they give helps those in lower and middle income countries and also students attend this training for free. So massively important. This sort of sponsorship is what helps to keep these events going. So with no further ado, and thank you to our sponsors. And I'd also like to make a special mention to Mary and Lucy, who are here hiding. And you may see in the chat a little bit, they need to go and make themselves a drink, but they have been absolutely fantastic in the hard work that they have put in to bring this all together. So you can just do a nice little round of applause. I know they can't hear it, but credit to where credit's due. This has been absolutely brilliant. Okay, thank you, Duncan. Right, let's start. The session today, I know it's an hour and a half, but that's okay. You are on mute. Please do add into chat. If you've got, I don't think we've got a Q&A feature, so just pop things into chat. Oh, we do. But just pop things into chat. Anything that if I need to explain anything, if I mention an acronym, because, you know, we all love a good acronym, right? If I talk about something, you're just like, what are you mentioning here? Tell me, stop me. Amy will flag to me. She will tell me off and I will make sure that I go over it. So what's most important for today is that you come out with some ways that you could potentially have 10 specific actions to increase the impact of your journal. Now, my background's marketing, and that doesn't necessarily mean that this is going to all be about the things that you could do in marketing. Of course, I could talk about that, but it's a bit of a blend. And I've been doing some panel sessions and writing a lot recently around discoverability of your content, your articles, your books chapters, conference proceedings, whatever it may be, review articles, primary research. I'm going to cover that. And how we're going to run today is if we can, I'll give you a little bit of a break. Do just pop in the chat if you're just going to go get yourself a drink or if you're just going to have a comfort break. But I want to do is make as much of this session as possible. We're going to run through 3 different ways that you could take from this to apply with your teams, if you work on yourself, with yourself, or with your stakeholders, 3 different ways that you could work with them in a collaborative way. Now, on this page here, if you want to connect with me, if you're not already, Duncan, we are, Baha, we are. I've seen some people pop up here. Thank you very much. Mary has put a link to the sponsors page as well in the chat, and Amy is going to be adding in some links for us as well. There's a QR code there so you can get your mobile device if you want to, your tablet, and you can scan it and you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can ask me whatever you like. I'm super collaborative. You don't have to pay me to ask me a question, even though I am a consultant. But yeah, anything that I can help with. Also, if you want to find someone that you're like, oh, I've got this specific challenge and I just want to have an informal chat with someone, I'm always connecting people for that. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to go to this Menti link. Now, this Menti link has some questions on it. So while I go through this agenda, I just want you to rank how you measure the quality as a metric of your journal impact. And you rank it by moving it. And so it's anonymous. Of course, there will be other ways that you rank quality metrics. I'm just giving you some specific options, but I'd like you to rank it. Bear with me a moment because I'm just going to, I'm like a trader. I have lots of screens.
Have you got the link, Lou?
Yes. Bear with. So you should be able to use the QR code on the screen. The link is just coming. Bear with. Sorry, Amy, I had all these, and now because I've gone all traderish and I've got my different screens, I've now lost it. So Amy sort of laughs at me because I am I have about maybe 5 different browser screens open, and maybe each of those has about 50 tabs. I'm one of those people that you could look at and you could potentially start, oh, it's too much. So I'm just going to go into Menti itself because it's much quicker and easier. But I can see that you're all starting to add information in, which is great. And I will share that. So do we know how many participants we've got here? How many have we got?
55 at the moment.
Okay, so there's a link as well that's in the chat. So this is very subjective in terms of how you are ranking. It depends on your region, it depends on who you are, it depends on your organization, it depends on your subject area. So I'm not doing this in a way to be scientific, but it is really interesting to get a general sense and a general view of how this is working. Okay, let's have a quick look. So, what a surprise! What? I do, as a marketeer, I do when June comes along and we have lots of people who adore our signatories, and there's a huge push about, impact factors out, must push it. And I'm like, yeah, but, May's just happened and site score came out. What happened to the big campaign then? So good to see what we've got here. We've got a number of people that are still doing this. Please continue to do this. I'm going to run through what we're going to do and then we're going to get straight into it. But please do continue to, the link is in the chat. The QR code's on the screen as well. You can go here, just move it to rank it and submit. Don't forget to submit it. But really interesting to see the NPS OSAT scoring I've just popped on the bottom. There may be other metrics that you use other than just net promoter score or the overall satisfaction score. Lots of different publishers will use different things. Okay, let's get started. And for those of you that didn't know, there is, I'm sure most of you do. Oh my goodness, it's absolutely chucking it down here with rain. Is that there is a H index for journals, which surprisingly some people don't know, but so I feel like that's a little bit of a hidden metric. Okay, so we're going to do this in terms of blocks. Now, there will be a link for Miro. It's an open link. You can go in there, you can edit. If you do go in fact, just as I'm saying that, I'm thinking I might just take a little copy because I sometimes do this with libraries. And when we do this, and then they go in and they change stuff and move stuff around, sometimes some things disappear. So we're going to send you in a moment into the Miro board. That's a place that we're going to interact together. You'll be able to have access to that. And I think if we can pull together some output from this session as well to continue the sharing and the learning. And also the slides will be available. So Mary will have the slides. Deborah, love you. I hate IF. Love it. Thank you. Baha, I know you'd love to measure community trust and disciplinary footprint. Please tell us more about how to measure them. Wow, you'd have to pay for that part, huh? No, I'm joking. We can talk to that. So we're going to do 3 of the specific 10, and then at the end we're going to run through and say, here are the 10 that you could do, and you could use these different ways of co-creating, collaborating with your stakeholders, your team, your peers, to actually do something that's very tangible and specific to you as an organization and to you as a publisher, what you need to do. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how you measure impact, and that's why we've just done that little Menti. But also we're going to talk about decoupled search. Now, one of these sessions wouldn't be a session without a little bit of AI, I know, but it's something as a marketer that is really important as well, in terms of discoverability and also in terms of how usage is measured, in terms of your HTML views and your downloads, because, you know, a 0 click. And we will add some resources in as well, where I've talked a little bit about it more in some blog posts. And then we're going to finish off with about attribution, about measuring attribution, and, you know, who thinks attribution is. And I specifically have put that one in because I was quite sad to see that someone on LinkedIn had been a little bit negative or written something a little bit negative about marketing, claiming credit for submissions when it was just, you know, the landscape shift. But, you know, it's a team effort. It's not just a marketing thing. It's across the board of an organization. But how can we measure that effectively together? Because sometimes it's about what we're measuring isn't actually what we should be measuring and reporting on. And that's the challenge there. So this session is being recorded, so please do not swear. I won't swear. I do have 3 dogs in here with me. Hopefully they will behave and they won't play. I've got a Great Dane over there and a Scottie, and then my mum's Cavacockapoo. And then, of course, you'll see them behind me as well. Right, so with no further ado, what are the annoying things moving across the Miro screen? So, I didn't know we'd added the link in yet. So Amy's very efficient. When you go into Miro, because I didn't realize that you guys were in there already. So when you go into Miro, if you click on the 3 dots, you can click accessibility, and you can do,
It's under view.
Oh, it's under view. Thank you. It's under view. And you can say, show collaborators cursors. No, thank you, because that's really annoying. So go to the 3 dots on the Miro board on the top left-hand side. If you're able to navigate and see the Miro board, click on view and then click on show collaborators cursors and toggle it off. And then you won't see that happening. I don't even know if you see me doing that with my arms. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Yes, those annoying things are your names. It's probably just generated itself. Who knows what you are, Duncan? Okay, so the first part we're going to talk about is resonance, relevance, and cross-functional alignment in a post-digital ecosystem. Post-digital, what am I talking about? I'll tell you what I'm talking about. So when we think about, if you're a society and you have members and you have students, you have early career researchers, you have people throughout all of their life and their career stage. When we think about now, an example that I give is that my 8-year-old, I'm 47, I'm a geriatric mother. I have a 4-year-old as well. My 8-year-old will say to me, Mummy, because she sounds like that, I want some Roblox coins because I want to buy a BMW or a Ferrari. And I'm like, oh, that's exciting. Wow. And I've realized that what happens is that because of how she interacts with digital side of things, of how she plays games and the things that she does, we've come from this physical world to a digital world, and we're now post-digital because you've got the virtual side too. And so continuing to engage with different generations, different people with different needs, who have different learning styles, who like to access content in different way. I'm very audio driven. I don't like reading articles. That just doesn't work for me, but I happily listen to them. So it's not just about accessibility in terms of whether you have a disability, it's more to do with your style. So when we think about that, how difficult is it for us to remain connected and engaged with those when they have so many different styles, when they're happy to talk physically at a conference, when you meet them, or when you have to talk with them digitally, not have to, but when you connect with them and engage with them digitally through email, through this kind of situation. But what about virtually now? So there's so many different environments that we have to think of and consider. So that's post-digital. It's like beyond thinking about digital now. So the landscape changing. What happened yesterday? If you didn't know, Wiley acquired Emerald Publishing, probably because at SSP last week, I think the stat was that 17% of their portfolio is around humanities and social sciences. And then I think they have about, it was 34 or 36% of their usage is actually attributed to that subject area. So when we look at proportionally, there's higher usage that's happening for social sciences and humanities, which is really interesting. And that's not to say that scientific content doesn't have longevity, because it does. Many years ago, I remember Anthony Williams from when I used to work at Kudos, and it was that iteration of when it was first launched and founded about research summaries from different subject areas that researchers would have to write. He had actually done a test, and he had some articles that were about 10 years old, and he thought, well, I wonder if I actually reshare them, if I start doing a bit of promotion around these articles, which are still, the science is still very relevant now. It's not that it's an article and it's been and gone. The science is still very relevant now. Can I increase the impact of those articles? Yes, and he did. So it's a really interesting experiment that just because something's been and gone, it doesn't mean it's, as we would say here in the UK, that it's today's news is yesterday's chip paper, because we used to have fish and chips and newspaper. So when we look at like the landscape and how we've got acquisitions going on and all the things that are happening, and this is an example, I do an introduction to journals marketing course with Rory from Rockefeller University Press for another member association. One of the things that we talk about is it's not the big five anymore, it's the big six. So MDPI, look at MDPI, which is green. Hopefully you can look. If not, I'll explain it very quickly. But what we can see is that MDPI has really increased in terms of their publication output, and this is Dimensions data over the past 10 years. And then it had a big spike, as we saw. A lot of organizations had a big spike over the pandemic. And then that sort of dropped, but it has been quite comparable in the last few years with Wiley. So when we think about Wiley is now going to increase their portfolio from around 2,000 to 2,500 journals, where are they going to start sitting when we look at 2026? So it's interesting seeing that happening. And also there's lots of different agreements going on where you'll have publishers and societies who publish for other societies, non-profits, museums, all those that may have journals, dependent on, it doesn't matter if they're small or large. So it's really, as we know, our landscape is constantly shifting. So I have a disruptor. This is not true. Do not panic. This is just me. So, I mean, Elon Musk is about to float SpaceX, and he's going to become the world's first trillionaire, potentially. So Clara Ray said, do you know what? When we had when we bought when we became or bought from Thomson Scientific, and we had Web of Science and we had Scholar One, that was about 8% of their revenue. So they weren't that interested. And I don't know if some of you noticed, if you were ever clients of some of those organizations, you weren't looked after as much as you would have liked to be, because you weren't, in terms of a commercial organization, really important at that time. And then they bought ProQuest, and then it became nearly half their revenue, this market. And they went, so they really started investing and paying more attention. But then they sold Scholar One. So we may see that they'll sell Web of Science, because they may say, do you know what, this market's just not for us. Who knows? Someone might buy by by I was about to say ProQuest, but they're Clarivate now. I worked for ProQuest twice. Second time they bought a company I was working for. But interesting to see when I started there, they'd just been bought and they were bought for something like 373 million. But when they were sold for something like, that's dollars. I think it was 5.2 billion. So incredible to see like the investment that had happened that with ProQuest and how that had grown. So there's so much that's happening. So let's say Clarivate says, you know what, I'm off. I'm like, bye scholarly publishing, bye academic publishing, Web of Science, gone. So Elon Musk has bought it, the challenge. So he's called it the must factor. Do you know what? APAC has suddenly said, I'm not getting behind this anymore. China abandons the impact factor and other countries start following and it's not incentivized anymore. What happens next? So that's what this next session is. So I'm just oh, there's a video with annoying foreground music. Has anyone else got that? Has anyone else got a video? Oh, okay. No, sorry. I thought you were, oh my goodness, I thought you were saying you had a video, but I get it now, Deborah. You're saying, yes, thank you. You're talking about, yeah, the annoying foreground music. Yeah, often too loud, very distracting. I'm neurodiverse. I find that stuff, yeah, a little bit irritating. So I completely get you there. I might not be paying attention, Amy, to some of the things that come through. So do flag to me when people say that. And yes, the consolidation, but it is tricky. But publishers will do what they need to survive and societies will make decisions about what works best. One interesting thing that I will note is that when I was a director for ALPS and we had a working group for moving learned publishing to be an open access and we turned it into hybrid and it's published by Wiley because of the volume of hybrid open access agreements that they had, a publication that was a cost to ALPS suddenly became a revenue generator for this non-profit member organization. So suddenly it generated, £9,000 and it was suddenly like £20,000 the next year. So because it was hybrid, it was really taking advantage of those agreements and it was starting to be fit for the future rather than being something that was a drain on resources. As we know with not-for-profits and whether you're not-for-profit or commercial, making sure you're fit for the future and that you're continuing to employ people and whatever that may look like is incredibly important. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at how does your journal prove its value? We're going to think beyond impact factor and where to start. So one thing I want to just remind you of is that 40% of the industry's output is from those big six that I mentioned. The big five.
We do have a couple comments regarding the impact factor in the comments as well.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I was joking. China's not that this Elon Musk has not bought Web of Science. This is an example, right? They're not, but because it's become the Musk impact factor, China is abandoning the impact factor. It's not happening as we've suddenly done it. There is slow progression and a slow move around moving away from having it as such an ingrained metric. And Australia is really interesting because they have very specifically come out and said, we are not promoting or we're not supporting ISI impact factor. And actually the things that they're doing, they're a really nice case study for you to look at. I don't know, Duncan, whether they're abandoning it in real life, because that's my harsh terminology, but they certainly are moving away from it. But the problem is it is quite well ingrained in some of the things that they do. And when you get examples from people in the industry who say, or from researchers that we speak to, and they say, because I published in a journal with an impact factor over XX, I was able to I actually got given a bonus by my institution in China that was more than my annual salary. And I remember speaking with some European scientists in mainland Europe, some researchers, and they were saying to me that at their institution, that a student couldn't pass their course, couldn't get their degree if they didn't have at least 2 articles published in a publication with an impact factor over XX. So we have things ingrained, not just the things that we do from the publishing side, from the research ecosystem side in terms of like publishers and service providers, but we have inherent challenges inside the institutional infrastructures as well, and their policies and things that they're doing. So it's going to be a long old road, but great to see some stuff doing it. Yes, I mean that would be wonderful, Baha, if not so much emphasis was paid on one single metric that wasn't originally created for that. But it's like the PubPeer platform that was created specifically for people to come onto and critically analyze and talk about articles that are out there, and it's turned into a platform where people will really critically analyze the data and the images and everything that's attached to articles and the open data and the research, and they will flag up when there are duplicate images. There was a Solto, I think I'm just trying to think of like the first part of his name. Solto David, I think it is. He just won a case recently. I met him at a conference where he talked about, he's like a sleuth for research integrity, and he actually won a case and was awarded money. He was an independent researcher, but part of the case he actually received a financial award, so he'll use that for funding. And he celebrated, I think, with like a supermarket pizza that cost him like £1 something. So that's how he celebrated. It's in the press as well. It's online. Okay, so let's get into this session, because we could all start having a real chit chat. So the link is in, Amy, if you can re-add the link in. The link is in the Miro board. It is the block 1 section. You will notice in a moment I'm going to share it on my screen. So we're going to reverse brainstorm, and then we're going to theme sort in Miro. Now, Miro, I haven't used the AI side yet, apart from creating some certain things, but apparently I can tell it to theme sort. So I'm going to give it a go, and I'm going to see whether it does it. And if not, I will just do it while we're chatting. And thank you so much. I'm getting notifications coming through. Oh, my network on LinkedIn is just increasing. How marvelous. So the SWOT test. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to go to your journal on your website, and I want you to go to your scope, please. And I want you to look at your scope, and then I want you to think of a competitor name. Now, if you are published by a society, that will be a slight differentiator. But I also want you to get your competitor, one of your competitors, whoever that may be. I want you to get your competitor's journal up, and I want you to get their scope up. So you can have 2 tabs that you can see. You can interchange. You can do it on the same window, whatever you like, however you like to work. You're not going to share this, but this is more just for us to sense check now. So the SWOT test. This is if you put your competitor's journal name above your journal name, like just put your hand over and say, oh, this is so-and-so. How easy or hard is it to tell them apart? Is the scope text that you have, or is the positioning text that you have for your journal? Maybe it's on your journal landing page, the about, maybe it's not just the scope, however you structured your pages, is there really a difference? And that's what's really worrying, because when you use, for example, when a user is using agentic browsing, so when they can type into their search bar and they have a plugin in their screen, and they'll type something in there and the AI does a search from there, or they'll go into one of their AI tools. I use lots of different ones. I like to mix it up. I also like them to get them to compete against each other. If they go and do that, if you go and do searches in there, and you're not going to the destination, to your article pages, to your journal page, is your journal really standing out? Is it really making a difference? Because if you have high quality, high impact, if you have the usual terms that everybody uses and you don't have like very specific subject terms and you don't really make it stand out, what's the unique selling point? Probably the people, your editorial board, the people behind the journal, the internal team. Um, there's lots of things that make it unique that you're not positioning. Then what those AI tools do, what Google does, it deranks you. It puts you, it second tiers you. So you're just part of the noise now. I would rather have 1,000 of you use an AI tool and reference an article that I've done and cite it, hopefully be cited, the source will be included, then come to our website and I have like 1,000 people who I've got no idea who you are. You're random. You're not quality to me. You're random. So I would rather you're able to authoritatively know that I'm the trusted source, that that content is trusted, is credible, and that AI search engine says, yeah, tick, that's very different. There's something about this that I'm going to rank appropriately. So you may automatically be doing yourself a disservice. Yes, thank you very much, Amy, Mary, with the link. Does that link work? Because there was a link that we put in the chat.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
QR code takes you to the same link as the link put in the chat.
yeah, great. It's just Mary shared it as well. And I didn't know she went and shared it from the top, and sometimes that's a different link, but that's okay. Okay, so when we reverse prompt, this is thinking, how do we guarantee our journal loses all authority? So actually, like, think of it the other way. What could you do? This is a really interesting exercise as well to do with your editorial board members. What could you do that would make your journal completely untrustworthy, lose all its impact, get delisted from the Musk impact factor? I mean, look what eLife did, change their model, their PRC model, peer review correct. I think that's right. And they got delisted from Clarivate from having an impact factor because they no longer conform to those specific guidelines for having an impact factor. But that's not to say that's a bad thing. But what could you do to lose authority? So, and that authority is subjective in terms of how that's measured. So what could you do? This is what we're going to think about. And then also, like when we think about the structural failures, so I work in a very agile way, but we're going to do something called start. It's actually start, stop, continue, but I've changed it to start, continue, stop. Because when you think about what you're doing that you could start, so this would be about you really thinking about your journals. So what maybe you should launch some more because we need lots more journals. Maybe you continue, carry on. It's doing really good. Where are these journals in your journal life cycle? When you're mapping them and you look at like if you look at a product life cycle, it's like that. And so well, it's actually like that. So like going up, that's when you launch it, sits at the top nicely. Hopefully that's where you want to stay in terms of a graph. And then when it starts dropping, submissions dropping, quality dropping, someone has behaved inappropriately, there's some ethical problems, there's a paper mill problem, there's a research integrity, whatever it may be, but it starts going down. How do you get it back up? So you want it back up on that top peak. So then we do stop. What are you going to stop? Which journal are you going to sunset? See me blinking? Sometimes it happens. Sunset also means, I mean, it could be brutal with the language and say terminate. But which title is actually say, you know what, it's had its time and we need to merge it with something else, or we just need to close it down completely. So let's go to the Miro board. Now, what I would like you to do for a few minutes, and I'm going to time it, everybody is going to go on mute, and we are going to give you 5 minutes to do your reverse brainstorm. Now, if you have never used Miro before, I can actually get you all to this section, which is the block 1. So bear with me. Amy, can you just remind me how to do that? Can you just look that up? Amy's the most amazing person to have with you for training, because when someone asks a question, she goes onto an AI tool, she finds the answer. You'll never know she does that. I've just given a secret. And then, oh, she's looking at funny now.
Which part are you wanting?
So I'd like everyone to, I'll explain this, and then while everyone's doing it, I'll ping you. But I just basically, you can bring everyone to a certain section in a Miro board. You can snap it so that you can say, bring everyone here. So we've got these pink post-it notes. Choose a post-it note, create your own. I just put some in there. Hello, hello. How are you? So on the left-hand side, there is a bar if you haven't used Miro before. And if you click on the little square with a turn, it's like when you have a printer, it's like which way should the page go on a printer or on a scanner. If you click on that, you can add a sticky note. Now you will end up adding them all over the place. That's okay. Don't worry, because this is what's going to happen now. You'll move them around. It doesn't matter. Those are just there for you to use or create your own. But if you keep them in that section over there on the left-hand side, you just click on it and drag it over. Don't worry about resizing anyone else's. We will sort it out and we will make it nicer for you. But right now, it's about you being able to do this. So we're going to give you 5 minutes. And we want you to write down the worst ideas possible that you could do to destroy your journal's authority. What would that be? What are the bad things that you could do? I'll move that table, this table away for the moment. I'm now adding my own post-it sticky notes. It does take a little bit of a minute to get used to Miro if you haven't used it before. You can move over to the left-hand side if you want. There's loads of space over there. And when we go to the middle one, you can do it underneath. But yeah, so we're going to go quiet. And if anyone's got any problems, do please pop in the chat and I will help you. But you will go quiet now. If anyone can't get on the Miro board, if anyone is blocked, just write it in the chat and we will add it into the Miro board for you to make sure that it's on there. There is on the bottom right-hand side a nice zoom if you want to zoom in. I'm going to have this on my screen. You can put your name on if you want. I do love that people are putting their name as well. But yeah, so you can change the color of the boxes. I don't mind. You can do as you please. Mary is putting Mary's name. Don't worry, Deborah. I just pop it in this chat and we will add it in for you. Amy, can you add in, can you be Deborah's dedicated resource? So yeah, Deborah, just pop them in here and we'll make sure that they're on the page and then anyone else's. No, you don't have to sign up, Deborah. It's an open link. You should just be able to click. And it should be the link that Amy popped in. If it's the same link that Mary did as well, which it is, it should enable you to do that. But don't worry, sometimes your IT might not like Miro. That's what I read last night about silly o'clock in the morning when I was checking something out because I work funny times because we work with people all over the place. So great to see stuff going in. I know I'm still talking. It's not helpful. But yeah, so Deborah, add things in, just add your point in, press enter, and then your next point, and then we'll Amy will copy and paste. Anyone else that's having any issues, oh my goodness, bless you, Deborah, you're on your phone. Oh, that's not fun. But I appreciate your dedication. Okay, so I'm going to go quiet now. So you've got 5 minutes. I know you're all filling out now, but listen, I would always say, go big or go home. Like, just be really like obscure if you want to. Let's just get everything down. Anything random. Maybe, you know, people that have done things that have had a hugely negative effect on your authority, quality of content, poor editorial board or board member behavior. Don't worry if you add an arrow, we can always remove it. It is that box with the little turned corner that you click on, and then you just click on any one of those sticky notes and it'll appear on the page. If you're stuck, pop it in the chat, we'll do it for you. And then if anyone thinks about anything else after, pop it in and we'll also make sure it's included because this is a board you'll continue to have access to. We just may turn off the editing rights in the future, but you'll be able to do a copy or take screenshots and stuff. If you have any nice examples as well, that's also really helpful. So remember I said I'd be quiet? Okay, so while you're continuing to do that, so just to remind you to solve the panic of something happening like Elon Musk or Musk impact factor, um, first you need to look at your language. So, how distinctive, how differentiated is your language from other journals, from your competitor journals? Now, we have seen how language has changed over the past few years for journals in the respect that you now have a more active tone of voice. So, Elsevier, for example, have just redone their brand and tone of voice to a much more active. Wiley had done that a few years ago, and this is like a imagine it's like and there are others that have done it too. The Royal Society of Chemistry had done it several years ago, and they had done this fundamental questions, elemental answers campaign. And it was about having a question or a statement and then like an answer, which would have been one of their journals. But the language was much more active. Now, AI tools do a great job sometimes, maybe sometimes they go a little bit too far, but they do a great job of turning something into active language if you need a bit of inspiration. Though, of course, we know that there are telltale signs with AI tools, but then you can just tell it, like, when you write text, you can just say, now take all your on dashes out and your Oxford commas, unless Oxford comma is part of your tone of voice guide and it's what's important. So then you can just use a tool like that to say, we wrote this. This is a style that we really like. Now we want to replicate it for other journals. So you can have a foundation, save time. It's a better way of doing it. But you could run your journals through an AI tool like Gemini, because Gemini is Google. And so it is using the Google search engine for various different things. And you could say, map us against these different journals, give me a matrix. What's the journal name? Give me a table and then give me a matrix and look at overlap. Are there any key terms that we all use together in the scope? How could we differentiate ourselves? What's the impact of this in AI searching and human searching, where they're actually coming to your site as a destination? So people no longer are coming to sites as destination. And I'm going to run through that in a moment in our next exercise. But this is in terms of impact. So how are people continuing to come to your journal? So change your language, resonate more. Apple have I'm an Android user. But Apple, I really appreciate the way that they talk with their community. There's a reason why people are so loyal to Apple products, why they have an iPhone, not just the fact that they sync really well and they talk really well together, but also because their language and their advertising often makes, even though it's technical, makes you feel like you understand. So they have a really nice way of resonating. Simon Sinek is like a marketing communications guru, and he has this thing called the golden circle approach, which you can find on YouTube. He talks about it and he uses Apple as an example, but it's a really good way of looking at it. It's not about what it is, what's the journal. It's not about how people can do it, they can submit to it. It's about why. Like, what is the main reason? So you may be a commercial publisher, you may be a society, a non-profit, you may be a press, a library publishing, whatever it may be, whoever you are, you may be a small corporate publisher, whoever you are, you need to really differentiate your journal and resonate on a level. Now, a few years ago, I did a research project and I asked researchers, we had quite a lean in the physics discipline because IOPP had come in on the research, but we'd actually got researchers from other disciplines too. And we found that when we asked the question, this wasn't like, what's the future of publishing? It's what is the future of publishers? I'd love to rerun this again and see how that's changed. because a lot of stuff has changed in the past 3 years. And one of the questions was, do you prefer to publish with a society, non-profit publisher, or do you prefer to publish with a commercial? And it was society, non-profit. And then the other question was, do you know who publishes your journal? And does that matter? And actually, a majority of people said yes, surprisingly, when most of the time I think we assume that they don't. And we know that there is a real loyalty and community behind journals. And that's what's important for them, because it's the people behind the journals. That's why they're bought into it, as well as if there's a society level. But just because it's owned by a commercial entity doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. There are lots of pros and cons, as we know, on both sides. So, with this reverse brainstorm now, you've now added your lots of good stuff in. And so let's just have a quick look at these notes. And I'm going to theme sort it after. I'm not going to do it now, but we'll have a quick look. So thank you, everybody. And thank you that you just keep adding, like just go crazy. Absolutely keep going. Now I can see that we've got one that is just up here. So I'm now back on my screen. If you're with me, you're with me. If you're not, you're not. Don't worry, because you know me, I'm going to chat. So yeah, not it's about publishing your friends. Love it. I mean, maybe you're really well connected, right? And so most of the network is your friends. But yeah, so just publishing your friends, ignoring those that you don't know. So in terms of what you're allowing to come in, we very rarely see, but it is still there. We very rarely see bias in terms of content that's coming in from certain regions, and sometimes there's like an automatic no, and that can happen. Or if maybe if there's also someone that's submitted and there's a bit of a challenge there in terms of conflict, and that's a no, and it shouldn't be a no. It's about the merit of the work, it's about the research, the integrity. Oh my goodness, the sun is out. What is happening? We've got a bit of Italy's weather. It's about the trust, the integrity of the work, and also, you know, where it's come from, who's funded it. There's a whole lot of things when we think about publication. In terms of how you treat editorial, whether they're internal editors, whether they're external editors, whether they're the board. There's a trust and credibility side, trust as an indicator. Increase your APC, absolutely. I mean, I see someone says 10,000. I mean, doesn't that exist? Aren't there publishers out there who might have APCs of that much? But absolutely, that's a real problem. Big APCs, you know, huge problem. And we really know that in this community across different subject areas, I could be talking about some part of STEM, I could be talking about chemistry, because I used to work at the Royal Society of Chemistry. And then I could be looking at biology researchers, and as different communities, they're so different social media uses, different ways that they like to do things, different subjects. There'll be some crossover in terms of interdisciplinary research as well. So yeah, it's that human approach. Love seeing that there's human approach in here in terms of care and looking after the editors, whether they're internal, they're external, the teams that support the journal. In terms of the quality of the content, what's coming in, who you're allowing to publish, who's not. Also in terms of, like, you know, are you even measuring in your publishing life cycle or in the publishing workflow whether there is a problem? Do you have a way of measuring whether there are any flags that are popped up? Using AI with minimal human checks, love it. Like, AI is fine. It's just a tool, right? It's just technology. It's an AI tool. We kind of treat it as this thing, but it's been around since we've had computers. We've just got a little bit better at how we use it and what we use it for. But I constantly, as Amy knows, have arguments with my many AI tools. You're absolutely right, Lou. I didn't do that. I took some stuff from an earlier thing and I ignored the text that you gave me, and I decided to use mine. I'm like, thanks, but listen, can we just not do that? So sometimes it's around specificity with those tools as well. And you know, as you like me, I have a lot of conversations in one thread. You have to remind it about some things, because it'll overwrite them. So just have maybe a prompt that you keep reminding them, Amy.
On that topic, just in the interest of time, do we want to move on to the next little workshop section?
Yes, I'm just about to. She's so good, isn't she? So so we've got lots of really good stuff here. We are going to theme sort this, and we'll probably do a bit of an output from this as well. But do have a look at this in terms of what people have had. But there are lots of really important things in here. And so these are like things that you shouldn't do. And that's what to remember about here. So that is our first block in terms of what we've going to be talking about. So that's you really thinking about your journal, the language that you have, how you differentiated, how you negatively impacting your content, how you should be positioned. And also when we think about how are you measuring? So impact factor's gone. What are you actually using to measure? So out of all those things that we have just put in, what are there in terms of metrics that you could use over and beyond impact factor? How could you tell a more compelling story? How can you celebrate those people that you've got internally and externally, all those volunteers, all the people that are involved? How can you really demonstrate and show your community? And also when we think about metrics, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment in terms of usage and things like that, are the metrics that you're using really the metrics that you need? So NPS, that's a really difficult metric because that doesn't necessarily quite do what we need it to do. So actually should you be using a different one? So what I would suggest is have a question like, we want to be the best quality journal or represented or understood as the best quality subjective journal, and then reverse engineer it. And how do you get there? And how, and it's going to be very specific in your different subject areas and also who you are as a publisher. Okay, so imagine your author's breakthrough science is completely bypassed by AI. So what I talked about earlier in terms of agentic searching using a plugin in a browser. What about if they're just searching in an AI tool and it's going to come, you're not a destination anymore. So a leading investigator uses an agentic browser. So they are using a plugin in their browser to do their searching across whatever they want to. Or maybe they're using like a ChatGPT, Gemini, U.com, I can't remember, Claude, whatever. And they are having a chat with it about certain things to synthesize the latest data in the field that they're looking at. They want to find something very specific. So these tools will go out within seconds and have searched millions of pages of content. How do you become the truth source? The source of truth is the way that I should have said that. How do you become the source of truth? What are you doing that is preventing you from being the source of truth? How does an AI tool say, that journal, I know that's really credible? So a search tool pulls an immediate 0-click answer. It's gone to your site, it's landed on your journal page, it's landed on an article in your journal on your site. Maybe it could have gone to an aggregator as well. But let's say it's gone on your site, but it fails to credit or attribute your journal because your data, the data behind your article, the data behind your journal doesn't have all the content it needs to. What's that mean? So there was recently a session that I was part of with Silverchair, and they talked about how the landscape's really changed in terms of AI searches. And I'm just gonna, I don't know why my Teams is coming up. Sorry about that. Because it is on Do Not Disturb. It's clearly ignoring me. So when we think about search engine referrals, it used to be people would go into a Google search and now it has a summary, and then the summary changed because it did take up the top part of a page when you looked at it, which is above the fold. And actually they've made it smaller now because all those sponsored links that they had underneath, they push down. So it makes it really hard now to be on that first listing that everyone talks about if you're not a sponsored link. So, but they have changed the summaries and they have started including citations as well, references. But what they saw is that because of how search behavior has changed, the referrals that are coming in from search engines where people will click and they, as a person, come into your destination page, that's plunged by 33%. And so it's now 55%. And it's a really interesting session because Paul G from JAMA talks about machine bots. And when you stop certain machine bots and AI crawlers coming into your site, what does that really mean? And how can you make sure that what's coming in is credible, that you're not just being scraped? Because I know that we're not going to get into that today, but that is a huge thing, a huge problem. And also in terms of the agreements with LLMs. So machine systems now account for 55% of your platform requests. Now that is not necessarily specific to you, but that was data that Silverchair gave as a platform host in terms of what they had seen. That's like over half of the traffic that's coming in is around platform requests. And that will change by subject area as well. That will change by whether you're an early career researcher or whether you're, later. That's your average, right? So what data choices keep your science visible? How are you making sure that you're staying visible? So remember those stats, 55% machine-driven server requests. So that's over half of all platform interactions now automated from bots. And then 33 to 55%, there's been a drop that's come through. That's like up to 55%. So that's 33 to 55%. That's obviously not an average, that's a scale. But it does give you an idea. And when we talk about zero click, and we'll pop a link to an article in a moment. I think, Amy, I did actually send it to you separately. I think you might find I did, but don't worry, because I will find it. But there is an article that I did in Scholarly Futures, and it talks about zero click. So you can read more about that there. But that is basically an AI tool is doing a search, it's coming to your landing page, and it's not registering as a click. And so when you think about libraries, and they're evaluating cost per download, cost per view, and you've got open access agreements, transitional agreements, transformative agreements, because, we love using lots of different terms. Then the measurement that they're using, the metric they're using is now flawed. So when we're thinking about quality metrics as well, tell a bigger story. What quality metrics are there that you could use, and what other ways of measuring the impact and measuring how your content is being disseminated and digested? How can you improve that where you are now, especially with how people search and what they're doing changes? So in this next workshop bit, we are going to get you to do a sailboat and a technique diagnostic in Miro. So we're going to go back to Miro, and data tells us the story of what happened, right? Data is a very specific structural thing. Data is data. Data can even be physical. It could be grain from a field. That's data. But data can be digital. Data can be whatever. But the data that you have behind your article, the article metadata, data that's attached to it, data that's living in repositories, it's the open data, or whatever it may be, anything that is to do with that journal article for your journal, it doesn't tell you the value of it. So the cleanness of your data is integral. And I know that this is hugely challenging. And I was talking with ASM Journals about this recently. And I know Deborah Plavin quite well. She used to work at ASM Journals. And Melissa Jr. was telling me how when Deborah was there, because Deborah's now at the American Physiological Society, how incredibly strong Deborah was in ensuring, and strong with internal and external stakeholders, ensuring that ASM Journals data, their metadata, was, the cleanest that she could try and get it. And she did, and they won like Crossref awards. So when we think about tools like Crossref, what we're sending into there, how do we change things that need to be corrected? Retraction data's in there. When you have like tools like Crossref, which is Chorus, which is a member organization, but they have data that people use to help them look at compliance tracking, but also the cleanliness of their metadata. How clean is your metadata and what are you sending in? Are you sending in the funder ideas? How is your data exposed in all these different services that use it? So when we think about messy citation structures and fragmented records, are you actually doing your content a disservice? So if we now go back to our Miro board, and we are literally going to just spend the next few minutes, what I want you to do is think of a boat. I'm quite visual. I was chatting to someone last week at SSP and they were saying that they think of nothing. I think Amy actually might be the same. Not very, yeah, you're not visual either. So when I think of a sailboat, I'm thinking of a sailboat in my head. I see a sailboat. Amy doesn't see that. Amy just knows that I'm talking about a sailboat. So, oh, thanks, Mike. So we've got here these little sticky notes. Add your own, use those, whatever. But let's think about in terms of what are the technical drivers. So let me just hang on. Someone's just moving that one. There we go. Thank you, visiting. Okay, so what we want you to do is if it's not big enough, Mike, you have on the bottom right of your screen, you have the percentage for zooming, and you should be able to zoom there. So if we, oh, it's gone. If we pop that back there, just in terms of what we need it to do. So you've got a problem with your data. So the thing that I want you to now be thinking about, and that I want you to input into that Miro board is, what clean technical plumbing choices? Imagine that this is your plumbing. Imagine that everything behind your article is plumbing. So like automated validation, structured cross-ref tags, even like S2O we've been talking about recently. How do you know if an article is part of an S2O journal? What sort of tags do you think that pushes content into AI systems? So, sorry, I haven't said that correctly. So all the things that push content that AI systems use, this is your wind, this is a help. So what are those for you? What is the data behind your article that you need to ensure that is great quality? What is important for you? And if you see someone else write it, then you don't have to write it, write something else. But what is it that you should be submitting, that you should make sure is behind to ensure that your content is discoverable, is the source of truth? What are you doing that you're not doing at the moment? So the wind is what you can do to push out to ensure that the AI systems have, and the anchor is the blocker, is a thing that's stopping you from going towards your goal. So let's say you have an island, that island is your goal, and that is for you to be discoverable, for your content to be discoverable, for it to be read, for it to be cited, for people to find it, for people to find your journal, to submit, all that good stuff that you want to happen. So what does your metadata need to be? And what sort of metadata do you need to be sending to the various services, whether that's a Crossref as a repository, but also what's the thing that's stopping it from that you have at the moment as a challenge? What is it that is stopping? Oh, absolutely. Interoperability. Tricky, right? What's the thing that's happening that's potentially pulling your journal down? Now, as you go through and answer these, and remember, if you're having a bit of a challenge in terms of adding anything in, just pop it in the box, because Amy will do it. Oh my goodness, 23 messages that I'm not even paying attention. Oh gosh, I wish you guys could chit chat. Yes, the link, Amy, do speak if you need to.
That's okay. I was just explaining there's a little drop down menu because as we're not owners of the board, we can't
I am.
export the usual way. So the loophole is if you just select all of the content, there's a drop down that appears with export as a CSV.
Oh, okay, amazing. And remember, what we'll do is we'll turn off access to this after, in terms of turn off editor access, but we'll leave viewer access for you. And so you can go into this, and if you, we will turn this into some kind of output as well. And maybe we can pop it somewhere. But this is a team collaborative approach from all of you. But if you write things in here, you're also sharing it with others. And do you know what? If you're not sure, if you're like technical stuff, you're like, I don't know, that's okay. But yeah, absolutely. Clean, consistent metadata across platforms, clear, specific titles, keywords aligned. What about when we're thinking about, do you get your authors to submit SEO keywords? And it's not just about SEO now. That's search engine optimization is about how a human searches. But when a AI tool goes onto your landing page, it's not looking at the data behind, like the meta descriptions in your SEO. It's looking at what's on the page. So, for example, you should always have an instance of your publisher's name on a journal page in the text, just so that it knows that's who this belongs to. Of course, it can find it by saying, I know I'm on this website, but it is a way that how it goes in and looks at the data. That just provides an extra authority score. There are tools that marketers may have access to, or you may have access to, like SEMrush, which has some really interesting indicators about how you can increase the impact of your content. I will also pop in another article that I did on LinkedIn recently when I had looked at some scopes that people have put in that Introduction to Journal Marketing training course, and how people were, unfortunately, their journals were being deranked because they were using such similar terminology. They just became part of the noise. And in there, I give some top tips also about how you can increase the impact of your journal, and the things that you can do, which is quite marketing led. But when you use a tool like SEMrush and it pulls up and it says, oh, you've got all these reciprocal links, or not reciprocal, sorry, all these links pointing to your journal page or to your journal website or to your content platform from these spam sites, there's a Google tool that can cut them off. You have to be very careful because they're not, what it picks up on some of the links are actually credible links, but you can go through the list and you can just shut them off, because those are affecting your trust score that Google is using, that these AI tools are using to say this is an authentic authority place. So when we look at this, and if you don't have other ones here, I'm going to add them in so that there'll be more here. So use of RAW, absolutely, ROR, really, really important. There's lots of really good stuff here. Now, so when we look at like anchors, the visual realization is that cleaning out the back-end metadata errors for an AI crawler is technically identical to optimizing your platform for whether it's AI related, crawling, searching, or human. You have to make sure your content is accessible. I am neurodiverse. This is like a big plead from me. We all like to digest information in different ways.
There's just some questions coming through the chat now.
Okay, thanks. Some of us like to listen, some of us like to read. You don't have to be neurodiverse. You don't have to have a visual impairment or have not be able to hear to want to digest content in different ways. We're all different people, we're all unique, and it's about actually learning styles. So if you have content, use tools to have an audio version, use tools to show a video. It's much easier to show a video of an experiment than it is for you to show for someone to write about it. And it also adds value and it adds more to an article. So are there little things that you're missing that you could do? And I know that in the landscape, we had the EU legislation that came out about accessibility, which mainly doesn't affect journals so much, but one day that might. I know it's more book related, but it might, and it's a good standard of practice. So RAW is the Research Organization Registry. That is an identifier that you can use that some of these services will do as a linking. So it's like when you have a DOI for an article, also there's a RAW is another way of identifying who the research organisation. There's funder IDs as well. I know Crossref are doing really big push on funder IDs as well. Yeah, Baha, I absolutely think that we should do this as an output article. And if anyone wants to join me in a co-author, please do, especially if you want to, if you're looking for a promotion or something like that, and you want to say, hey, look at the stuff I was doing. I went to this training and I also, as part of this article, just get in touch with me. The more, the merrier. I mean, I'd happily credit you all if you're happy. We can always send an email out afterwards and ask you if you're happy to be credited. If you are, we'll pull you in. Okay, so now this is like a whirlwind tour, but I'm giving you different ways for you to go back with your team. And oh, look, I need to pick up my children. That you need to go back with your teams and ways that you can work with them on things, ways that you can brainstorm and do this. And I am going to add into this board myself and add additional things. So the last two things I'm going to do is we're going to do the last third one, which is attribution. A bit of a tricky one, this one. So your journal sees a sudden massive spike in submissions. Oh, we're in a pandemic again. So the editorial team, publishing, however you're set up, our journal's amazing. That's why, we've seen a spike because of this. Maybe your sales team. Well, we've just actually set up a transformative transitional open access agreement. That's why the spikes happened. Look at the example I gave of learned publishing. Marketing claims credit. I do that because that's what someone wrote on LinkedIn, and that really annoys me. Marketing claims credit because of a recent campaign. You know what? We're all doing stuff. Marketing sits in the middle. It's supply and demand. That's marketing is everything in between. As editors, you're doing marketing. You're going to conferences, you're networking. Marketing is just everywhere. But, we're all collaborating and we're all doing it together. If it's really hard for you to measure what, say, marketing might be doing or other teams might be doing or what may be coming in from transformative agreements, but you are able to measure something, that will at least give you a picture. And I know that with a society publisher that I used to work for, one of the things that we did was we looked at that and we said, okay, how much is coming in from commissioning? Because we know what's coming in from commissioning. And it was like, I think it was something like 20% or something like that. So where does the other 80% come from? Marketing, which everyone is doing, as well as the marketing teams. So that's really interesting when you can say, well, I don't know this, but I do know that. So author records, database registries, service providers, campaign history, it could be everywhere. We talked about interoperability before, someone had mentioned that. So the trust weakens between departments, the comms not happening, and decision-making stalls, and marketing can be treated as a churn engine. That's sometimes what I find with some teams. They're just churning. I'm like, are you testing? I don't have time to test. I must get this out. Like, this email's so important, because email sadly remains the most important and relevant form of communication when it comes to engaging with the research community. But they're actually a really good strategic source, as well as some of the other ones. So when I started nearly when I started this industry, I started at ProQuest, and it's quite technological led. I was doing pricing, I was doing competitive analysis, I was doing repositioning, I was doing branding, like I was doing a lot of very strategic marketing. But then when I came from secondary publishing into primary publishing, I found that there was a real shift and change where actually it was more like churn campaigns, and the strategies and the marketing wasn't involved in some of the conversations that they should have been, because they provide a vital resource. So one of the things that we're going to just touch on now is in terms of the engagement matrix. So I have a matrix here, but this is around you thinking about what you're doing at the moment, the activities that you're doing, and where that sits in this framework that I've created here. So broadcast, push out, inform, let people know. Broadcast is like press release, big emails. Inform is like an explainer webinar. I feel like this is informed. There's a bit of engagement going on here, but this is more enablement, right? So we might be sitting in C. because I can't talk to you. I can chat with you, but I'm also not noticing so much because it would be a distraction for me. So it's better than broadcast. Maybe you ask them to complete a survey and they respond, and then nothing happens. Like, you don't feedback a loop and say, thanks so much. And actually, because you said this, we decided to do this, or we took on board what you said, but we've actually gone in a different strategic direction, not closing that loop. But engagement, the engagement zone, that's when you start co-collaborating. That's when you co-create and you work together and your interaction is continued. Now, you can do broadcast, you can be an A, that's fine, and you can be an E. You'll be all over the place. You don't have to be in E, but the thing is that you need to recognize that engagement in a community perspective is around engaging with your community in a way that they're reciprocating and it's an ongoing conversation. Otherwise, you're just enabling to them. You're just, submitting information, sending stuff out. So when we think about this, and it's absolutely fine to think about that, because you can be anywhere, and it's okay if you spend most of your time in A and B. That's okay. But when you talk about not engagement, how we measure engagement, because that's different, but community engagement, when you talk with your community, and please don't forget that your internal community, your stakeholders and other teams, they are so important and often forgotten about. And actually, the stat is that 80% of the projects where you work together internally and externally, they succeed. But that's actually compared to 40% where you're not engaging, you don't have that community engagement where it's a two-way conversation. So the final few minutes, what we're going to work on is we are going to go over to this other section. And I've popped some stuff in there. So this is you thinking about your touch points. Now, this is a table. You can actually click in here. Don't worry about, you can do post-it notes if you like, sticky notes. Sorry, not post-it notes. That's a brand. That's like saying sellotape. You can type in there, but this is you thinking about who are you engaging with? Like, who are these people? You don't have to do initials. You can write it. You might do initials for an acronym for internally, but who are your stakeholders? Who should you be engaging with as your community? It doesn't matter if you're sending things out. So it's researchers, it could be your peers in your editorial team, it could be marketing, development, production, it could be peer reviewers, whoever it is. Who is it? So that's what we want you to do now, is go into the who. And if you have any challenges with that, then please, yes, there will be a presentation will be shared. Mary will have the presentation. She's collating them all, and she will be sharing them. So yeah, members, authors, researchers, lots of different hats. Those working in libraries, I don't say librarians because library teams over the years have massively evolved, and some people aren't librarians. They have marketeers, they have people from the publishing industry, data analytics people. And also there's a huge imposter syndrome going on with people who call themselves librarians who don't have a qualification, don't feel they can call themselves librarians. I'm professionally qualified as a marketeer, but if someone I work with as a marketeer doesn't have a professional qualification, I'm not going to say to them, you're not a marketeer.
And then while you work on that, there's just a question from Deborah in the chat about your stance on why email marketing is sad that it's still the most relevant way to connect with people.
Yes, so, and I'm going to touch on that in the last few minutes about other things that you can look to do and also what other publishers are doing. It still remains, it's just a really solid form of content, but it should not be overused. I have a black hole. Amy knows my black hole. It just, they send me an email. Lou, did you see my email? No. That's not the best way to communicate with me. So think about the what as well. So what are you communicating? Press releases, talk alerts, newsletters. What is the content? Articles. What is it that you're doing? What are the activities that you're doing? Recruitment campaigns. There could be a plethora of things, of ways that you are engaging with your communities and internally as well. How are you letting your internal audiences know what's happening? So then there's the when does it happen? At what time of year? Of course, we're like Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, different cultures, different holiday times. different celebrations where China, for example, is there like a week or two in August where, you know, everyone's off. I mean, mainland Europe, everyone, you know, in Southern Europe goes off in August. So, you know, what's really thinking about the calendar and the time of activities, testing your assumptions. Don't ever assume. Test something, get the evidence. But the thing is about this, and to finish this section off now, before I finish on the last 10 actions, is that create working groups to actually test assumptions, to really work out, are our assumptions correct? Don't just assume, test it, prove it. In your subject area, it might be, might not be. But create working groups that are time limited, so maybe like 2 months, and we're going to actually sort out all our comms that goes out to authors in the service emails to say, here's a push notification to say your article's now ready. Get your marketing colleagues to bring in a better language, to look at it, to not make it so functional. Is there something else that you're missing there as an opportunity? Have you got an overarching peer reviewer campaign that you need to make sure is included that's not promotional, and it's more, it's not a promotional message, because if it's in the service messaging, or maybe that's not service messaging, but think about what are your pain points and actually create a time limited working group, bring in multiple stakeholders with very specific skill sets. That's the important thing there, is the skill sets and the experience they have, not where they're sitting, but their skill sets. Maybe they're really creative people. So bring them in, time limit it, and then have it as a phased approach. We're going to see whether this would work. Okay, yes, no. Oh, now we're going to move on to a new one. That will mean that people aren't stuck in working groups. There's less reliance and less load on different people. And also you're sharing the load across an organization and finding things from people that you may not always get. Now, don't worry, because we are going to fill some of this in, and I appreciate that we are close to time. So I'm going to move over now to the slide deck in terms of like the actions. So what do we talk about for the last 3 minutes? SWOT test. We made you do that at the beginning. Get your team to do that. Get your marketing people to do that. Get it, you know, whatever the SWOT test is for, could be for a journal, could be for a book, whatever it is. Look at your scope. Look at your positioning text. Use another organization as a benchmark. Really differentiate your journal. Put it into an AI tool like Gemini. How could I really differentiate it so you do not derank me? Ask it. It's Gemini, belongs to Google. Validation metrics. So thinking about how you're reporting, thinking about being about more relatable to real world utility models. Look at Australia. How are they measuring impact? Institutions, the alignment that they have. How are they want to demonstrate impact. I bet many of you have data inside your systems that you probably look at every day. What if you shared that with the library and said, well, actually, did you know that for the researchers, if you can't say who they are because of GDPR, of the researchers that published with us this last year, your researchers, did you know that they had an average altmetric score of this? Or did you know that, you know, the average citations? What if you created a little story for the library to then share with their senior leadership to say, look at the great stuff, look at the great output, or it goes to the research office. Institutions want better students. International students pay money. They want, you know, better ranking, credibility. How can you help an institution achieve that? Involve marketing early. And it's not just marketing. It's other teams as well. Dev, you know, there are so many amazing teams that we have, but marketing also has access to tools to help you to improve your trust, the scores online, your engagement, and also your positioning. We talked about the time-limited working groups. Facilitate those, co-create, Opti-channel. And I'm going to talk about this very quickly because I know that we are very nearly at time. So other publishers are using things like LinkedIn InMail for peer reviewer campaigns. There are lots of researchers on LinkedIn because they've recognized it now as a great platform. Look up for researchers on LinkedIn who are influencers, who are sharing their articles, how they're doing it. Reddit is very distinct in its advertising. It's not normal advertising. There's loads of amazing stuff that you can use, not just email, But find opti-channel is optimized channels. Find the channels that work for you. Stop doing what's not working. Just don't do it anymore. Just don't waste your time. Just stop sending it out. Mandate raw data sets. Your data has to be clean. Be the trust anchor. Be that authority place. Ask your researchers directly when you want to look at attribution. Where did it come from? Find ways of really making sure that they know. And in the touch points, create personas, nurture them through your customer and journal life cycle, map them to it. Track behavioral metrics, really thinking about how they're moving and behaving, and reverse engineer. And then finally, the accessibility side of things. It's not about whether you have a differing ability, a disability, who you are, what you define yourself as. It's about ensuring that everyone has that opportunity to disseminate, to digest your content. Now, I know that this has been super quick, and I know that we have a final slide that I do need to say, and I'm so sorry for running just slightly over. Please do send me any questions. The slides will be with Mary, and I will pull together some output from this. And then anything you've got a question on, please get in touch. I know it's been very quick and I've got so much information to give you, but I had to sort of hold some of it in. But you are more than welcome to reach out to me directly. And we'll also send you the links to some of the resources so you can do some further reading should you want. So we're next coming up, 12 o'clock. You've got half an hour, 28 minutes. But you do have the celebrating 5 years of making an impact for your DEI committee. And then you've got the other sessions later today. So make sure that you attend those. You have been absolutely amazing. I know, I'm so sorry. I've crammed everything in. But at least I hope that you've come away with specific ways that you can work at a team and actually start looking into this, because those 10 things, those are some of the things that you can do. When I wrote that, I was thinking, oh gosh, there's more, but you know, it's about what works for you. So I hope that you've got 3 different ways now that you can work with your team: sailboat, island, anchor, wind, all that good stuff. And if anyone does want to ask me a question, you're more than welcome to say and ask me one, or you can just reach out to me separately. But I think we've got a video now, haven't we, Mary?
Meet Jams, the editorial partner you always wished you'd had. Running a scholarly journal is serious work. Too many journals still rely on a manual process or system that was never built for how publishing actually works. Jams is an end-to-end platform built specifically for scholarly publishers, from submission to publication, all in one place. Submission management, peer review, APC billing, journal website hosting, and real editorial guidance from publishing experts. Jams is built for journals of every size and every budget, including a free tier if you publish up to 20 articles per year. Whether you publish 10 papers or 1,000, Jams grows with you every step of the way. Backed by MDPI's 30 years of open access experience and a team that has helped grow over 500 journals worldwide. No lock-in, no surprises, just the support your journal actually needs. So come talk to us today, or visit jams.pub to learn more and get started for free.